Some people think Webley revolvers are big, clumsy, and kind of ungainly. I disagree with them. I think they shoot very, very well, and I think it was the most robust combat revolver of World War I.
Those of us in the gun industry or the gun hobby, collectors, even movie buffs, recognize the Mark VI as being the Webley revolver of the First World War. Now, of course, its biggest debut on the silver screen comes in David Lean's 1962 epic Lawrence of Arabia.
The Webley was a very, very robust revolver. It can take a lot of beating. And it went from 1887 up to the Boer War. They had 4 different slight changes. I mean, you really have to know them to be able to recognize one without looking to see whether it says Mark 1, 2, 3, or 4 on it. And then in December of 1913, we made the change to the Mark V. But when it comes up to 1915, and the British Army decides to standardize one new revolver, we get the Mark VI.
The really horrendous conditions of trench warfare in World War I, the Webley Mark VI in 455 was probably the best mudder that existed. The guns were indestructible. They were perfectly designed for trench warfare. It was probably one of the first firearms, top break, that had a speed loader that was available for it. So it was very, very fast to unload and reload.
The Webley Mark VI is used in World War I, does not have a fine finish like one would find on a Smith & Wesson or even a Luger. It's kind of a blue-gray finish, almost a matte finish, but it withstood the mud. And this was really important because this revolver can be dropped in the mud, pulled out, and it still works.
The British never threw any of them away. They kept rebuilding them. And if you look at any Webley revolver today that's seen military service, they have been rebuilt numerous times. You find all kinds of hieroglyphics on them that relate, that could go back as far as the 1890s and extend up well into the 1950s. Not at all uncommon.
The only variant that they made was after the war, and this was a special one for the Royal Irish Constabulary again, who during their duties in Ireland during the Troubles, 1919, 1922, had expressed an interest in having a shorter barrel simply because they were usually in Crosley tenders or motorized vehicles. And in the motorized vehicles, you don't want the big, long barrel. So there was a limited number of these made in short barrel.
One of the tragedies of the Mark VI is the fact that, like the previous other service marks of Webley service revolvers, at that time it was chambered in the rimmed .455 Webley cartridge. And that was not something you could get over the counter here in the United States very easily in the post-war period. Thousands and thousands of these guns were brought in before 1968 and sold in the very pages of American Rifleman magazine for as cheap as $19.95 and $29.95. But you see the advertisements by the importers highlighted the fact that they had been shaved or altered to accept the 45 ACP cartridge of our 1911 with half moon clips. And this sold a lot of Webleys, made them very popular with shooters and collectors. But now collectors are looking for those Webleys that have not been altered for the American commercial market, those that are still in their original British military configuration. And to identify those guns, if you break open the action and look at the face of the cylinder, you will find a British broad arrow or a British proof mark on the face of the cylinder. And on the edge of all Webley revolvers, the serial number to match the frame of the gun is stamped right along the edge of the back of the cylinder. So if you're looking at the numbers on the side without even opening the gun and the tops of those numbers are missing, then you know the gun's been altered. If you crack it open and you don't find a British broad arrow or a British proof mark by the chambers, you know it's been shaved as well. And that knocks a good bit off of the selling value of the Webleys.
Whether you have a revolver that's shaved for 45 ACP or in the original 455, ammunition is readily available for the Webley Mark VI. That's all the time that we have for this week. If you like the show and you're not an NRA member, you need to sign up right now. For more information, go to AmericanRifleman.org. I'm Mark Keefe, and I'll see you next week right here on American Rifleman Television.